Born to Build podcast.
Welcome to Born to Build, conversations with the builders, founders, and pioneers driving change from the ground up. My name's Sam, and today we're chatting with George Smith from Harmonic Automation SA. George is a friend, and we've been getting to know each other over the last few months. George, welcome. So great to have you on the podcast.
Great. Thank you for having me, Sam. It's good to be here.
Let's start at the beginning. George, you work in technology, Harmonic Automation SA, as a small business here in South Africa. What sparked your interest in tech, first of all?
So when I was at high school, I was at a boys' school, and a lot of the discussions at the time was around engineering. A lot of the guys either went into technology type things. So a lot of the discussions were around engineering professions, civil engineering, mechanical engineering. My brother studied mechanical engineering before he did his MBA. And there were a few of us who did, and chemical engineering was a big one. When I started studying, and I studied at UCT at the time, there was only really the option around mechanical engineering. And around the electrical engineering, it was really just light current and heavy current.
Right.
Nowadays, you get mechatronic engineering, you get computer engineering, you get software engineering. At the time, it was just two streams. You did either heavy current or you did light current. I decided to do light current.
You're aging yourself a little bit there, George.
Yeah, it does, Sam. But that's where the interest started. In first year, you start doing software, and the software side of things really interested me. You obviously, I think you did it in if I recall correctly, you did it in first and second year. But then you start doing a little bit of software around the processes that you write software around. And at the time, it was machine code. So I'm really aging myself there. Around the 8086 processor.
Wow.
So that's
Amazing.
really, really old.
Yeah.
So we started writing things for that processor. And since then, it's just really been an area that has really just fascinated me. It grows very quickly. It's very challenging in terms of just staying abreast of all the different developments that take place in that arena. If I tell you that in first year we did basic programming and Pascal, two languages that are obsolete.
I remember doing some Pascal and Basic as well at school. Yeah, we had to still do that at school.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Amazing. Yeah. So I think we'll speak a little bit about that more as well in tech, but a little bit about your company. Your LinkedIn profile says it offers process automation, advanced auto ID solutions, software development, and consulting. Can you break that down for maybe possibly also some people like me who might not know what that means?
Okay. So auto ID solutions. So my first foray into the area that I'm in at the moment was really around auto ID. At the time, barcoding was becoming ubiquitous. It was quite settled in the retail arena. So sorry, when I speak about auto ID, it's really a broad term to handle things like barcoding, RFID, even NFC, IoT. It's starting to embrace that as well. But it was really just in barcoding. So we built barcoding solutions around different things. So whether it was production management, logistics, library solutions, just different things that required a barcode that was going to identify an item, or it was going to identify a process. And we needed to build solutions around it. after a while, and this is probably going back about 20 years, we started looking at things around RFID. That's when Walmart was talking about putting it into their stores in the States. And we thought that because Walmart was the driver of the acceptance of barcoding into retail, that RFID was going to be the next silver bullet. It didn't really take off, but we built a few solutions around RFID manufacturing, and not really in retail. And then after a while, as you start building very niche solutions, clients start asking you to handle more and more things. So we moved into process engineering. And with process engineering, it's really just about managing certain automated things, either in a factory, in a retail environment, specifically warehousing and distribution centers. And we started building solutions around that. So you're involved with a little bit more PLC type software work, which we did and got involved in. And the software development and consulting was really just, in order to build solutions, you either became a box dropper where you just supply hardware, or you build a solution. And we felt that it was necessary for us to embrace all the challenges that the software development had. So initially, we played around with certain things in the ERP space. So we did some interfacing into things like SAP and Oracle. But then SAP and Oracle started developing tools around their what we call a WMS, which is the warehouse management system. And so they started building modules to handle what was happening in the warehouses. SAP did it rather well, but some of the other smaller ERPs like Syspro and some of the Sage packages didn't really have those interfaces. So we started building them as we progressed in our evolution. And then the consulting, from everything in the beginning, because we started off with things like barcoding. One of the things that you do with barcoding is that you print a barcode on a sticky label, a self-adhesive little label. And knowing what a self-adhesive label and the different types of self-adhesive labels and the different type of environments that they go into, that becomes important. So being able to just handle that side of things,
fascinating.
You become a consultant.
Yeah.
You're having to build things and tell people this is what our software can do, but maybe what you need to be looking at is some things. And then the client also needs to say, well, we're looking for something like this rather. Can we look at possibly just incorporating this into your software? And so we need to consider these kinds of things as we're going along. And that's when you put your consultant hat on.
Right. What's the story behind your company? So going back to the beginning, what was there a particular aha moment for you that, a problem that you needed to solve, or how did you begin? Where did it all start?
It was really just an opportunity. So I was the technical director for a company. At that stage we were a national company, and we had started doing some work internationally, and an Italian company, hardware company, had approached us to represent them. And they came and spoke to me. I was happy with it. I took it to the board, and the board was receptive to the approach and agreed to it in principle. But then what happened was that nothing happened. There was no training modules. There was no budget put together to train people, to put together marketing approaches. Nothing like that was done. So the Italian representatives came back to me after a while and asked me what was going on. And so it was a little bit frustrating. And what happened was that at that stage, we had been doing some work with a company up in Joburg, and I told the Italian company, I'm looking at possibly doing something else, and maybe I can represent you. That's essentially where it started. The name of the company comes from the fact that I went into partnership with a Joburg-based company, and they had Harmonic in the name.
Right.
And I'm not a musician, but I love jazz music, and I think the one thing that sets jazz apart often are the harmonies, the different types of harmonies, and having to put things together, and just the concept of having to put solutions together, put teams together, put individuals together. To me, was it was a little bit of a musical band.
Yeah. To orchestrate processes.
Yeah, there we are.
Nice, beautiful.
Yeah.
And you're at the time, so you're saying you're working for a company. Were they happy for you to kind of take on this client? How did that, work out? Obviously, there were some interesting dynamics there for sure.
Yeah, it was strange because the board was very happy for us to do it initially, but because there was just this hesitance around taking up the opportunity, we did a few little sites, we did a few little projects, but they were tiny in comparison with what I knew was happening out there. So that if you can imagine that right at the beginning of 4IR, the fourth industrial revolution, there was a lot of talk around putting automation and process engineering solutions in place to handle certain things in the day-to-day life of a business, and especially if you're in the logistics or manufacturing, or even retail environments, there are certain things that need to be and I'll come back to some of those scenarios that we dealt with. So some of those things that needed to be automated, and there was just no uptake. So when I told them that my frustrations, and said I wanted to leave, they didn't really stand in my way. Which, looking back now, it was actually quite a bit of a blessing. That they didn't stand in my way, and what it meant was that I could start building the business on a good footing. The last thing you want to do is burn a bridge as you're leaving, because the South African tech industry is actually quite small. And if you're looking at the auto ID side of things, it's even smaller.
Yeah.
In fact, we often say that it's actually quite incestuous, because people hop around from different companies, and we get to know each other, and you meet up at trade shows, and are you here now? Okay, how come that kind of discussion that takes place over at trade shows, and when you bump into each other. So it was important for me to leave on a good footing, and then we started putting together some marketing stuff. We put some equipment into the retailers, and then things started taking off from there.
And sounds like you could start off straight away with one existing client then, right? So did they stay with you? Did that?
So the biggest, well, initially I think the very, very first one was actually the country's largest online retailer. I think they still are the largest online retailer, and they're still with me. They're still.
How did you land that deal? Starting out fresh. How do you land the largest online retailer?
So when I was the technical director, I sold. So before you had mobile Android devices, you had Windows mobile devices, and okay, I'm talking about Takealot here, and Takealot had bought quite a bit of those devices from me, so I had a little bit of history with them. The old company, with the new equipment that they were looking for, didn't have a solution. So having the relationship, it meant that I could now supply the solution and supply the hardware and do the business with it was a clean slate. There wasn't any there weren't any crossed lines, stepping on of toes or anything like that. So they've stayed with me. They've bought more equipment from me when they built new distribution centers down here in Cape Town and up in Joburg. They've called me, and they've asked for more equipment, and we've sold them software as well. And then from there, so yeah, we've done a lot of work amongst the retailers, brick and mortar, as well as the online guys, especially in the distribution centers.
Right.
So yeah, and we still have those relationships with the bigger FMCG type retailers, apparel retailers, the home care, or personal care type retailers, the two big ones in the country, that we do business with as well.
So what does
yeah.
that look like in a warehouse? Like where do your solutions fit in? It'd be interesting to hear.
So our solutions, there are three main areas of interest that we have. One is around the handheld devices. So typically you have nowadays it's almost exclusively Android. I think one or two might still be using some old Windows Mobile stuff, but essentially it's just an Android device that is running software. And that software is either a telnet session. Believe it or not, there are people still running telnet.
Amazing. Yeah.
Telnet sessions. It might be a SAP screen, a SAP mobile screen for Android. It might just be a stop take application that is running on the device. But the handheld device is a tool for certain things to be done. So that's the one area we get involved in. We also have some equipment that we bring in mainly from the States, where things coming into a warehouse, you need to make sure that your racking utilization is calculated correctly. So they often just bring it along. We do some measurements. It takes the measurements, uploads it to the WMS. And the WMS makes a calculation based on making sure that the racking is sufficient for the amount of product that is coming into the distribution center. That's the other area that we get in. That we call it. That's really the volumizing side of things. And then the third one is really just around auto ID. Fixed mount solutions. So maybe I can do one. I can give you an example with one where it involves both barcoding and RFID. So we work with an apparel retailer that sources their product, their apparel product, from just about all over the world. So wherever the product is manufactured, they have a label that gets put onto the outside of a carton that identifies what the product is and what the quantity is. It also has a 2D barcode, so it comes along that bring it into the distribution center. We need to scan that to identify what is expected in that carton. It then goes through an RFID tunnel where we now need to count what is inside. Now, using RFID. So at the manufacturing plants, at the factories, they've attached RFID to each of the products inside the carton. They seal the carton, they send it through to us, and now we need to read it and confirm that what is expected is actually correct.
Right.
If it's not correct, we then make a determination that it needs to go to what we call an audit lane, where it gets opened, and that's where the physical work gets done.
And just RFID is a little tag or something that transmits some type of radio frequency, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. So it's a little antenna that is built into the self-adhesive label, and it gets you in their situation you get passive RFID as opposed to active RFID. And what happens with passive RFID is that you have an antenna, it wakes up the small antenna. So you have the big antenna that is looking to see the small antenna. It wakes it up, reads it, it identifies it, and then counts it, and needs to identify it. So each item with RFID and the way that it's been implemented is that each item of clothing is uniquely identified. So it's almost like a serial number for the shirt,
Right.
or the trousers, or the piece of clothing that you need to handle, down to, and so you identify it uniquely. It's what we call a SKU, and it identifies it uniquely, and it knows that there is a difference between the 60 or so that we're expecting in the carton. It can identify them individually, because sometimes what happens is that the carton might be 60 larges, but there might be 59 larges and one extra large.
Right.
So we need to be able to identify. So that is seen as an anomaly, and we need to find out, because what happens is that when a store requests the product, the guys who do what we call picking, they stick their hands in the box and they just grab. So it says, they say, we need 5 for this branch, so we're just going to grab and put it into the box because we need 5. They don't actually check to see whether it's a large or an extra large or a medium. So those are the kinds of areas that we get involved in. We write software for it, because we need to make certain decisions in the warehouse. Sometimes we don't need to do too much. If you're doing a telnet session, the telnet stuff is usually done. Believe it or not, there are still some IBM mainframes out there.
Wow.
That some of the software is written out there. Some, I think we still deal with AS400s.
I have no idea what that is, but that sounds
It's okay. Yeah, it's an IBM mainframe.
wow, amazing. Talking about tech, so that's very old tech. Let's talk about some newer tech. What is exciting you right now about any kind of new tech coming out, specifically in automation, possibly, or anything really that interests you? Is there anything that excites you?
So I think one of the areas that has been bubbling under for a little while, and it's also involved on the auto ID side, is the area around IoT, the Internet of Things. So essentially what it does mean is that anything that needs to be identified or can be identified or needs to be measured, if it can be automated, if that process can be automated. So for instance, you need to keep a log. So for instance, in a situation where you've got a coal store, and the product from the coal store needs to get to a restaurant or a retailer, and that cold chain mustn't be broken. So you've got a little threshold that the temperature needs to be,
Right.
that the product needs to stay in. You need to measure that and be able to communicate back that temperature at the same time.
That's crucial,
So
right, for food safety and all of that, right? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, things like that. You might need to know where it is as well. So it's not only necessary to know what the temperature of the product is, but you also need to know where the product is for some reason. Maybe not the retailers, but some of the other guys might need it. We did some work with one of the utilities, and they have these big, you see them alongside the roads, these big transformers, and they need to be identified, and as they're being transported from the manufacturer to the supplier, and then the supplier in turn installs it, we need to be able to identify where it is and if there's any movement. So usually what happens is that you build these IoT sensors with things, with different types of things. There might be an accelerometer, it might be a temperature sensor. There's certainly GPS. for location and for geofencing things. So we build solutions around IoT. It's very, in this country, we have found that even though there are some bigger opportunities that are coming along, we did a solution for, as I said, one of the what do you call these things? Like a utility.
Mm-hmm.
And what they needed to do was, they initially came to us with a requirement for RFID. We gave them an RFID solution and we said, I think you need to look at IoT. At the time, they didn't know what IoT was. We explained it to them and we explained the benefits to them. Because with RFID, you need to be in range of an antenna to read the tag.
Mm-hmm.
With IoT, and especially depending on the kind of technology that you use, you get what we call LP-WAN, which is low power wide area networks.
Mm-hmm.
That can read the IoT sensor, or you can use a little SIM card, and that can identify and geolocate the item that you are tracking. So IoT is starting to gain momentum, and I suppose the other area that we can't get away from is AI. It's influencing the way that we are looking at things hugely. The kinds of tools to do the analysis. And I'm not only talking about, shortening development life cycles down, but we're also talking about the kinds of tools to make very quick decisions. And
Right.
I don't know whether you recall when we used to study, that we used to talk about this feedback loop, and how sometimes and especially in machine learning, you need quite a few cycles of these feedback loops to try and get closer and closer to what the machine needs to do, or the piece of equipment needs to do. AI sometimes cuts it down. I haven't seen it down to seconds yet, but it does cut it down significantly by being able to make decisions pretty quickly.
Yeah. And I guess being able to optimize these processes as well, right? You've got a lot of data, and AI can analyze that data quite well, I imagine.
Yes. So to give you an example, some of the tools that we would have used 5 to 10 years ago to make certain decisions around the item that we are identifying or tracking, we wouldn't have been able to make decisions immediately. Now, I'll give you an example. The one retailer that we worked with, and also an apparel retailer, the carton with the RFID needs to go through a tunnel, and the tunnel, the conveyor is moving quite quickly. The carton is only in the tunnel for about probably about 1,300 milliseconds. And by the time it exits the tunnel, we need to have made a decision.
Wow.
Have we read everything? Have we sent it up to whoever needs to receive it? Have they responded back to us? And then we need to make a decision. Does it need to divert? Does it need to go to audit? Can it just go to palletizing? The kinds of tools to make those decisions, as you say, AI is revolutionizing those kinds of things.
Yeah. So have you guys started doing any AI work, or have you seen that with your existing customers in their warehouses?
Yes, both. So we really now, we're actually going through an exercise now where we are asking ourselves, when it comes to certain decisions that we need to make, how does AI going to help us? So we're starting to think about that, and we're starting to implement it. We've got an asset management system that we've implemented at a client that has something around 160 or 170 different sites. The software is resident in the cloud, and so we're collecting data from these different sites all the time, and we need to make decisions pretty quickly. Not in terms of seconds, but we're having to make them pretty quickly. and we're finding now that AI is starting to be huge in that area. We're having to implement a few other tools around it to make it easier, but we are finding that. We are finding as well, just to answer your question, a lot of interest with clients around AI, and I'm starting to see them implement it in their distribution centers or in their processes, in their environments. So yeah, we're seeing quite a bit in this area.
Yeah, amazing. Just to change to business a little bit. Let's talk about business. Maybe there are some listeners who maybe not that techie, but in terms of business, running a business, a small business in South Africa, what challenges have you faced, and how did you overcome those challenges? Maybe just an example of one big challenge that you had, that you were able to overcome.
I think one of the things that happens when you're a startup is the importance of marketing, but you don't have the budget for marketing.
Mhm.
Marketing is one of those. It's almost an intangible. You can't quite put your finger on it. You don't know why it's important, but oh well, we have to do it. So let's see what we can do it, and you try and do it on a shoestring budget. Yeah, I've we've learned the hard way.
Mm.
Try and just put a little bit more money behind it. To that end, I'm a Web 1.0 guy. So you don't even know what Web 1.0 is. Where you go to the internet and you get information. Things like social media in my mind, is an afterthought. It's not something that is integral to building a business. That's been my old school thinking. Right. I've had to change my mind around it. So we've brought someone on board who is looking at our presence, our online presence. And so you've referred to the LinkedIn side. Traditionally we've just had a website, and now we're getting our LinkedIn side sorted out. We're not sure where we're going to play around marketing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is. Sorry to interrupt, but it is interesting because you're B2B, business to business, so it's a very different type of marketing that you need to do, right? It's social media probably works quite differently in that environment as well. So it's a different challenge to someone who's selling to B2C.
Yeah, and traditionally I've been so hesitant because we've seen ourselves primarily and virtually exclusively as a B2B business, and whether it's a small business or a medium business or a large business, they are looking for some kind of a social media presence. Even if it's just to know what are the latest projects that you're doing. Now, I'm terrible at it. And thankfully I think I've realized I'm terrible at it, and we're now starting to address it. But so many of the clients are asking, what are you doing now? What is it interesting? Is it something that can benefit us? I was dealing with a pharmaceutical company that we've got some business with. We've had business with them for ages, and the IT director I was having a meeting with her, and we spoke about some of the things around RFID that we were doing for a previous client of hers, and she was very interested in it because it wasn't the kind of solution that she thought would handle that other client, and because they were in the packaging industry, but she could see the benefit for them in the pharmaceutical industry. So, but it took us having a face-to-face meeting for her to find out about this.
Mm.
It should have been something that she could access online, and we now starting to understand. Or certainly, I am. The person that is coming along is a lot younger than me, and has a marketing degree, and has always understood the importance of it.
And I guess
So,
the importance of surrounding yourself with people who have strengths that you don't have, right? And being able to realize, what aren't your strengths. And
yeah,
we naturally try and attract, I think, people that are like us, or, that we understand and we relate well. But actually, it's quite important to also kind of attract some people that have very different strengths to us. So yeah.
yeah. And on that issue, the financial side of things, someone who is able to just look at the numbers, can determine where you're at, the health of the company, and provide honest feedback to you. That's pretty important. And it's one of the things that gets neglected with startups, unless you've got some decent money to build a great team.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Can you just maybe to close us off, can you share a success story, a project where automation that you implemented really made a transformative difference in customers' lives?
So we have a client who manufactures refrigerators, and so they manufacture refrigerators and televisions in the country, and they've got a factory. They took over an existing television factory um, up in the West Coast area, and they were looking for a solution to handle the product coming out of production, because they were handling it pretty manually. So they would write down that this, because they manufacture different models at the same time. We've got one of this model, another one of model B, two of model 3, and they would do that manually. What they wanted to do was they wanted us to scan the product number and the serial number, uploaded to their WMS. They had an API on the WMS, and receive a response back. And if there was an issue, so for instance, sometimes what happens is that as they manufacture the refrigerators, and they've got these big boxes around them, they also strap it, and sometimes the strap goes over the barcode. So they wanted us to be able to handle those things. And then if they can't scan either of the barcodes, because sometimes one of them is missing, and also just to make sure that that serial number is supposed to go with that model number, it made a huge difference to their throughput. Those kinds of things are,
Amazing.
we love hearing that, because it's moved them from being manual. And if I tell you the name of the company, you think surely they should have been, because I believe they're the biggest TV manufacturer in the world. They should have had something that was a little bit more automated. Well, they didn't.
Sure.
So those are the kinds of things that I love hearing, because
That's cool.
we believe that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it.
Yeah.
So being able to just see those how implementing certain things has made a difference to us, it's gold.
That's the type of feedback we live for as builders. Now, what does that mean to you personally, being a builder?
I see a builder. Okay, first of all, I believe that just as if you're building a physical building, the person needs to have a vision. The person needs to have a very clearly articulated and communicated vision. So in our business, I think we've got a few people, and we're hoping to identify a few more who are looking to build certain things, and it's our job to empower them to make sure that they can build the product that they have the vision for, and that also from our side, it's important that our vision of the company, our values, our ethos, the kinds of things we want to do and where we want to be in 5 to 10 years time, that we communicate that so that any product that we build includes those values. And yeah, so I think communication and being able to communicate a vision is important in building. I think that for me is such an important step, that it needs to permeate every other step that comes after that.
Yeah, for sure. I've actually just concluded reading a brilliant book that I would recommend everyone read, called The Vision Driven Leader. A very good read. I highly recommend it. We're going to come in for a landing. Just a few quick fire questions for you as we close off. What's something you know now that you wish you knew when you started?
I think one of the things that I always struggled with because of my upbringing, I didn't really know the importance of taking risks. I wish I was, it took me till I was in my 30s to take the first big risk around business. Just because I was just very cautious. I was just a very simple, cautious, and non-risk taking type person. It needs to be calculated, of course, but I wish I knew the importance of it. I think the other thing that as an engineer, you almost look down your nose at salespeople. Learning to sell is for me is an important lesson, and I learned it the hard way.
Brilliant. How do you stay motivated and keep your curiosity alive as a founder?
I think the curiosity is an important point. Trade shows, network, speak to people, invite people out to coffee, people that interest you. Meet with people that are going to stretch you. You mentioned something a little bit earlier, that sometimes we look for people that are very like us. They're very similar to us. They have the same tendencies, the same trends that they copy and mirror. Sometimes you need to look for people in your network that are going to stretch you, that are going to make you think about something differently. And sometimes that may mean bringing on younger people. So, for instance, when it comes to things like social media, it's important to get some people who know that side of of a business. And then also when it comes to in our situation, some technical strengths that in a lot of the stuff that we deal with nowadays, I didn't study. I didn't sit in a lecture theatre and learn these things. And so sometimes it's just about being exposed to these new things as regularly as possible.
Brilliant. You talked about social media, but last quick question. Where can people find out about your work? You said you're still working on that a little bit, but how can people reach out to you if they need to?
So they're welcome to email us, just George S at harmonicautomation.co.za. We've got a website. We're on LinkedIn.
Great. George S at
Harmonic Automation. Automation.co.za.
George, it's been amazing. It's been awesome talking to you today. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed this. Thank you.
Cheers.